Okay then, thanks for tuning in to Wayne's Electrical for another plugs video. I've got a package there up in front of the camera and we're going to be diving into that right about now. Okay, it's all nicely wrapped up there for preservation purposes because, well, I don't want it getting knocks and scrapes and dings and scrapes and scratches on the paintwork or anything like that. Quite a sizable one this. Not plug, but a socket. Okay, now because obviously speaking a socket is associated with a plug, I'm putting it in under the plugs video designator. So there it is. I'll say what we do now is we open that packaging up very carefully and have a look around at what's in there. Okay, now I have got a bit of sticky tape on there, as you can see, and if I lift this up you can see that I've doubled it over so I can just peel this off for like times like now, and away we go. Now this hasn't been unwrapped since the last time I documented this on my previous channel, so I haven't looked at this since that point in time, so it's now about to be unwrapped again and documented in full HD this time, because that's how we do it on Wayne's Electrical. 1920 by 1080p with stereo sound on the microphones, don't forget. Okay, so we're going to open this up now and into it we go. I think it's coming quite clear now. It's actually face down. Okay, you ready for this then? There we are. Oh my goodness, I haven't seen that in years. That is so satisfying. There it is then. Yes, it's a cooker control switch. And if we look closely, if I get my pokey screwdriver, we've got a 15 amp socket on that. Okay, round pin. And that is the British Standard 546 on there. Nicely coloured in MK logo. I think we can get a bit of zoom on that. Oh yes, look at that, would you? Okay, so there it is. Right there then. So, this switch is, well, I think it's pretty obvious it says cooker on it. If I can get all that stuff off the screen, I can be able to see it with you. That's much better. So, we've got a cooker then, it says it there. Off, up the top and on down the bottom. And then over here it says socket. And this switch here controls the socket. Okay. This one is obviously, it's a flush mount only. Okay, so you can't surface mount this one. And as such, it does have the relevant back box to go with it, of which would be fixed into a wall. You can see that the front plate is greater than the size of the box. That's how you fix it into the wall. Funnily enough, there's only one fixing, but having said that, I'm sure you could put a screw through there into the wall and another one there into the wall. It's got a variety of these other holes. I don't know what that would be for. Just in case, you know, the application requires that you've got a large knockout on the back there. But obviously, speaking on something this big, you'll be running like a 10mm cable into that, and you wouldn't want a pokey little 20mm hold on that. So there we are. It's the same on the top. Normally speaking, on a lot of these, you'd have a cable coming in from the top, and it would come in there because it would be coming down from upstairs under the floorboards. So it would come in there, through this unit, and if I turn the unit around, there's a couple more knockouts down the bottom there, so you would knock one of those out and have a nice big fat cable coming out of there, and then that would go to, it's like an outlet, a wall plate outlet. So I've got one, and we can look at that a little bit later. Okay, so this switch on here then, when you wire these up, they are actually internally joined up. You don't run two circuits into this. Okay, it'll just be one big beefy 10mm cable going in that. Okay, maybe a 6mm. It depends how big the cooker is. That switch on there for the cooker is rated for 45 amps. Okay, I can't remember what 45 amps is now. I think it's like about 10 kilowatts. Somewhere around about there. You can work that one out if you get a calculator and type in 45 times 240. You'll get an answer. I think don't quote me on this. I mean, I can't really remember now because it's been a little while since I worked out 45 amps. I've got a feeling it's 10.8 kilowatts, somewhere around about there. So yes, 45 amps then for the cooker switch. And obviously speaking, this switch here, it's for that socket and would be rated for 15 amps. Okay. So what would happen is then you'd have a big old cable coming into this, and that 45 amp or 45 amp cable, it would supply power to both of these. Okay, and that outlet. Now the thing with this, I mean, yeah, you're probably going to be thinking, well, yeah, it's not so much of an issue if that had a 13 amp outlet on it. And the reason for that being is this. If there was a 13 amp outlet on there, okay, the British Standard Y363, when you put the plug in there, what limits the amount of current you can take out of that socket is the fuse in the plug. If you know a thing or two about British Standard 546, you will know that most of the time the 15 amp plugs are not fused. So this kind of throws up a bit of a problem. Okay. If you've got a nice big fat chunky 6 or 10mm cable coming into this thing, it's rated at 30 or 45 amps. And you've got a socket on there which is only rated for 15 amp and a switch that's only rated for 15 amps, and you put a plug in there which is unfused. Well, how can I put this? I think you know where this is going. Okay. Unfused plug going in there, and it's connected into a big chunky 30 or 45 amp circuit. That's a nice little recipe for poppage, isn't it? Well, it would be if MK didn't put into this, incorporate into this a nice little safety feature. Okay, and what they've done when manufacturing this for obvious safety reasons, and this is something which you don't get on the 13 amp variety. Okay, so don't go start pulling it apart and looking around for it, because you won't find it. It doesn't need it. And like I say, for the very obvious reason that the 13 amp plugs, they are fused. Okay, your 15 amp plug, the British Standard 546, which is what goes in there, it is not fused. Okay, so, you know, the whole, everything from the consumer unit up until that point and the plug that goes in it was only fused by the plug, the fuse in the consumer unit, we would have a bit of a problem. And it's pretty obvious that those at MK recognised and understood that. Okay, you've got like a 30 amp circuit coming into this, or a 45 amp circuit. 15 amp socket on there, you can put something in there, and there's nothing, well, there would be nothing to stop you tugging more than 15 amps out of that. Okay, now they obviously recognise this at MK, and they have incorporated into this unit a very special, unique little little safety device, and it's quite it's quite an ingenious way they've incorporated it in there. But it had to be done because, like I say, you've got this on a 30 or 45 amp circuit, 15 amp socket there with an unfused plug in there, and yes, if you start turning that on and tugging a bit more than 15 amps out of it, there's going to be problems. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to have this cover off, and then we shall be having a look at the little safety feature that's built into this, where it is, what it looks like, and all of that lot. Just hold on there with me a moment. Okay then, thanks for coming back after the break. Now, we're going to be looking at that cooker control socket after this. During that, I said that the cabling that comes in and out of that would go to an outlet, a wall outlet. Okay, and then from there you would have a big old hefty cable coming out going to a freestanding cooker or something like that. What we got there then up in front of the camera over to the right is one of those wall outlets, and to the left of that we got the respective 15 amp plug which will go into the cooker control unit. There it is, 15 amp British Standard 546 plug. I should put that over by the cooker control unit, and we'll have a look at that in a moment. Wall outlet then. As we can see on there, you've got two screws securing on this front plate. This is a two-piece unit. You take these screws out, this cover comes off, and then behind that, still fixed into the wall, into the box which would be buried into the wall, would be a terminal block. There's the terminal block on the back. Okay, these screws here are not what you loosen off to put the cables in. Those are the actual screws that hold the brass blocks into all the plastic. Now I'm going to open this up. Now this one is a salvage unit, so I've got a feeling there is a part missing out of this, namely a cord grip. Okay, so yeah, it's a little unfortunate that, but you know, beggars can't be choosers on these things, and MK don't make these in that pattern anymore. Okay, I actually do like this one. It's got like a nice little rounded thing on the front of here, and then the flex, well, not a flex, it's a hefty great cable that comes out the bottom of that. Okay, so like I say, you loosen these two screws off. Do excuse my nose, a little bit moist tonight. So you loosen these two screws off, then this front cover comes off like so. And then you're left with your, oh dear, that's fallen apart. I might need to glue that back in. Well, I've actually just delved that in with a couple of bits of adhesive of some description. I'll have to look into that later. Right, we've got the 3 brass blocks in there then. And it's got two screws per terminal. Like that. Now, it doesn't actually say on here what is what, but it's pretty obvious to a more competent electrician. You would just put one conductor in one, another one in another, and another one in another. Now, depending on which way the cable is facing round when it's dropped into the box, that one might be neutral, that one might be live, and because inside Twin and Earth, the earth conductor's in the middle, you would normally put the earth conductor in the middle terminal. Now we've got these two threaded holes down the bottom here, one there and one there. There's brass inserts inside there, and that somehow says to me across there would be like a big strap of some description with screws going in there. And what you'd do is you'd have the cable coming out the top, looping over, and then coming down the front. Okay, this is not upside down, you don't put it in like that. Okay, what makes this up that particular way is you've got these two holes here, this upper hole, it's not threaded. Okay, you can pass that screw straight through there. Okay. And so that hole there, you'd put a screw through that into the back box, which would be buried in the wall. And this lower hole is threaded. It's that threaded hole in this screw which holds on the front plate. Okay, so there we are. And that is how that is not upside down. It's actually up the correct way. Okay, and also don't forget that when you bring the cables out the top, you've got to bring them up, loop them over and down over this part, because down here there would be, I believe, a cord grip, but on this one it's missing because this is a salvage unit. Okay, let me zoom that camera out now and put this front plate back on. But you get the gist of the wall outlet plate for the cooker. Okay, you can see in there that these holes line up with those threaded holes on the back of that plate. Once I've done these screws up, I will show you on the back that, if I can get the wall plate to match up with the threaded holes, I'll show you that the terminal block is indeed the correct way up. So this here then is how you actually get the cable out of the wall and into your freestanding cooker and do it neatly. Okay, there are a few bodge artists who do actually run the cable down the wall and just have the cable hanging out the wall, and it looks horrendous, and it's not the correct way of doing it, because if you ever needed to disconnect the cooker away from the wall, the only way you could do it would be to pull the cooker out, and you do need a fair length of cable to do that, and loosen all the wiring off out of the cooker. Now that presents a problem, because you would have a length of cable just hanging out the wall, and if someone accidentally turns the switch on, the end of that cable would become live. Whereas if you've got this, and you disconnect the cable at this point and pull it out, and then put this cover back on, because all that is shrouded in there, and you can't get your finger up in there anyway, you won't be able to touch the terminals in there. So we got the two screws in there then, and if I turn it around like that, you can see that there's the terminals in there, and that part there is where that flex grip would be inside there. Not a flex grip, massive great cable grip in the bottom of there, and that's where your cable comes out. Okay, I would seem to think you can probably put like cables in that 6mm, 10mm. Okay, so there we are. That is the wall outlet plate then for an electric cooker, or anything else for that matter that's where you need a high current application. Okay, you can get those other little wall plates where it's just like a little round hole in the middle and it comes out. You can find those in bathrooms, and I think they're rated for like about 10 or 15 amps. But these, they're like the big old beefy ones for like 30 amps and upwards. Okay, so we got that out of the way then. Let's go back to this cooker control unit. There it is. Now I was saying in part 1 that this has got a unique little built-in safety feature to prevent someone either knowingly or unknowingly drawing more than 15 amps out of that socket, because don't forget, this will be wired into a 30 or 45 amp circuit. You have the big old cable coming into this, and that one cable that comes in, it will do both of these switches. For the cooker, obviously speaking, it will go straight back out again into this. And for this, it would obviously go over to the socket, and then you can put a plug in there. Now remember this, that goes in there like that, and that is what that looks like with a plug in there. And obviously speaking, you turn the switch on. Okay, so you'd have your big old cable coming out the bottom there, going to a kettle or something. That is normally what would have gotten connected in there. Okay, if in a kitchen kind of application, you'd have your kettle next to your cooker, and it was well known, one of the most common accidents that used to happen is people would plug a kettle in there, and they would have the kettle over the other side of the cooker, and this cable coming out of here would get stretched across across the cooker, and yes, when someone turns the cooker on, the cable which is sat on top of the cooker, it would just burn up, you know. So you always have to be careful what you plugged in there, where you droop the flex. Now, like I was saying, I'll just leave it over there. These plugs are unfused. If you've already seen the video on these, brilliant. If you haven't, now I'm going to open this plug up now. We'll have a look around in there. If you've never seen inside one of these, then this might come as a little surprise to you. Okay, I've loosened those two screws off there then. Those two down the bottom there are cord grip. Let's tip those out. There's the two little precision engineered brass screws right there. Here's our plug. If I turn this over, ready for this. Whack, there you go. No fuses in that. There's your neutral, there's your live, and there's your earth up the top. Okay, now back in the day you would have put a black conductor in there, a red one in there, and a green one in there. If you was wiring this up today, you put a blue one in there, a brown one in there, and a green and yellow one in the top. No earth conductor in no earth conductor is an earth conductor. What I was saying about was a fuse. No fuses in this, and that is why with one of these, if this didn't have the built-in safety device, you could potentially pull 30 or 45 amps out of that socket and cause a bit of a problem. So I'm going to do this plug back up now, and then we're going to be getting into that cooker control unit, so we'll be having a look at the little safety devices in there to prevent you pulling more than 15 amps out of it. There we are then, one 15 amp plug, British standard 546. Let's get into this then. You've been waiting for it, I know you have. Now, to access the safety device, what we need to do is you've got to screw down the bottom here and a screw up the top here. You need to loosen those off, and then this front plate, the whole front plate comes off. Okay, you don't need to worry about all the guts hanging out and all the wiring dropping out and things, because when I loosen this off, you will see how the actual cooker unit is contained in there. Now that screw is, you can't lose it because it's actually held in there as like a little thing on the back. It's the same with the one up the top, hopefully. Right, I've loosened the screws off then. This front plate should just lift off. All the internal working should remain in the back of the box. Like that. Let's put that down over there. You can see the back plate there. There it is. One back plate. Nothing on the back of it. Brand new old stock that. As you can see, it's nice and clean and shiny. Not a single mark or scratch on that, which is why I keep it in that bubble wrap. So, that's what it looks like inside then. As you can see, it's got oodles of space in the back of it for all that really thick, chunky wire that's going to come into there. There's our cooker switch then. There's a socket switch. So where's the safety feature then that stops you pulling more than 15 amps out of that socket? Well, it's just below it. You've got this little brown bit here. Okay. We'll see if I can zoom in on it for you, because I do want to document this in full HD. There it is. What I'll do is I'll tilt that camera down. Let me pull that zoom back a bit. I shall lean that over like that, and then fire the camera straight in there. That's even better because you can see all the wording on it now. Again, I'm trying to see this on the silly little screen on the side of a camera, but on your computer screen, hopefully you can see that in full HD. There it is. What do you notice? It says on there, fit 15 amp, if I can get all that stuff off the screen so I can read it with you. Fit a 15 amp cartridge fuse. And then, here's the interesting bit. It says, to British standards, or BS, 1361. Now, if you know what British Standard 1361 is, then you will know that 15 amp, the British Standard 1361, is actually, in fact, a consumer unit cartridge fuse. Oh, yes, it is. And that is what's inside there. Sorry about that creaky tripod. I'm going to pull that out of there now. You just get hold of it either side of it. No tooling needed. Once you've taken the front plate off, and it just comes out. And there we go. So that's inside the hole then. A little bit of zoom so you can see inside the hole. There it is. And you've just got two bladed holes down the bottom of there. There is some numbering in there. "5049" it says in there. I'm not sure if you're getting that on your computer screen. Again, I'm seeing this on a silly little screen on the side of a camera. Let me just tilt that down there. And here we have the fuse. What? There we go. It's an MK fuse as well. So that's probably the original fuse that was supplied with this unit when it was sold. Okay, that's actually like a dark blue colour, which is the recognised colour for 15 amps. Okay, yeah, colour codes then. We'll quickly zip through it. White would be 5 amp, blue would be 15, yellow would be 20, red would be 30, and green would be 45 amps. Now, the interesting thing about that is, as you go up through the ratings, the size of the cartridge changes. The interesting thing is, I've never figured this out why, but the 15 amp cartridge and the 20 amp cartridge, did I say the 20 amp cartridge? The 20 amp cartridge is yellow. The 20 amp cartridge is the same actual physical size as the 15 amp one, so you could, really speaking, put a 20 amp one in there, which is a little naughty. You shouldn't do it. But I never figured out why, even though all of the cartridges are different sizes, both in diameter and length, that I don't know, I think someone slipped up somewhere, because the 15 amp and the 20 amp cartridges are physically the same size, both in length and diameter. Let's get that out of there. Very carefully with it, because it is the original fuse that came with it. So then it says on it, it's a 15 amp, British Standard 1361. I've just dropped that. Let's go again. So it says MK on it, it's 15 amp, British Standard 1361, ASTA certified. Okay. So there you go, that is the original cartridge fuse that came with it. I will assume that it is functional, because I don't think this cooker control unit has ever been put in service. It's just too clean and tidy and immaculate condition in there. Okay, so I'm going to reinstate that fuse back in there with the MK logo showing and the fuse rating. So there it is. Okay, MK 15 amp. Let me zoom that camera out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to reinstate that, making sure it's the correct way up. I'm sure it's going either way up, but just for, you know, just to keep it nice and, you know, uniform and all that lot, I'm going to reinstate it the correct way up, so all the wording is the correct way up. And it just goes in there. Okay, now obviously speaking, with this removed, that socket won't work. So we need to reinstate this back in there. Like that. And again, that's something important. If you see one of these for sale, always check that that is in there. Okay, if it hasn't got a cartridge in there, that's no worries, because you can still get 15 amp cartridges to British Standard 1361 at the point in time of making this video. But if the actual fuse holder's missing, it's not worth buying this. Okay, you might like this and you're sort of thinking about buying one. One comes up for sale. It's obviously been removed. It's a used unit, and someone pulled it out and thrown it away, and that renders this unit, well, the socket on it at least, useless. Okay, you could probably still use that. Okay, because that is obviously straight through. It's just this, the socket which has been regulated by that fuse. That does not affect this cooker circuit here, because obviously speaking, you want the full-on 30 amps or 45 amps to go straight through that, but you don't want all of that current coming out of there, hence the little safety fuse that's in there. Okay, so I'm going to reinstate the front plate on that now very carefully because that is nice and clean on there. Okay. Immaculate condition that is. Like I say, this unit is, I think it's a new old stock one. Now the interesting thing about this one, when I bought it, I can't remember now if someone tried outbidding me on this, because yes, it was up on an auction. And I can't remember if someone tried outbidding me on it, or whether it was just really expensive. But I thought about it for a little while, and I thought to myself, well, there's only one like it, and I bought it. And there it is. And the reason why I bought it is for times like now. We've got to document these things, okay, because don't forget, this is Wayne's Electrical, and we do electrical bits and pieces from the usual to the more bizarre. So we've got that then. MK clock control unit with a 15 amp outlet on it to British standard 546. It's not that often you see one of those, and as far as I know, there's not another one on YouTube or any other video hosting website for that matter. Okay, so you know, I've really delivered the flavour on this one. Wall outlet plate, which would team up with that, and of course 15 amp plug, the British standard 546, which would go into there, and there we have it. I hope you enjoyed watching that one. As when I can, we will be getting more plugs up in front of the camera. As when I can, you know, think of things to document up in front of the camera. And of course, in other videos where I have had them on my previous channel, I will be re-documenting them in full HD. So if there's a particular video, a particular plugs video on my original channel, and you want to see that in full HD, then just hold on there with me a minute, and over time, when I get that video subject, if I still have it, which I probably will, I will get it out, get this camera out, stick it there up in front of the camera, start the old roller film going, and we should get it in full HD. What I would really like from you, if you can spare one, is a big old thumb up. That would be much appreciated. And of course, if you haven't yet walloped that subscribe button, get in there right now and really do hammer that subscribe button, because it will save you from having to miss out on future videos like this. Okay, because like I say, that is quite unique. There's not that many of them around anymore, and it's probably the last one left in existence. And if you do ever see another one of those, it's probably not going to be in that condition. That one there is new old stock. I'm out of here. This has rumbled on long enough, and I would like to say thanks for watching another Wayne's Electrical video.